Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of the Pancrase Retrospective series. I join you today from the post-apocalyptic wastes of Australia with a special guest, and let's let him introduce himself.
G'day, I'm David Moore. I fought in Pancrase nearly 20 odd years ago now for a couple of years. Had a great experience. Had a few losses, but still nonetheless a great experience.
All right, thanks very much. So our first question is, what was your martial arts background prior to Pancrase? Had you done any sort of mixed fight, any free fight stuff before, or was it all purely just one discipline or the other? And who did you train with, and how did you find martial arts to start with?
Okay, I actually found martial arts through a girl, actually, which is quite funny. I was working in the pub behind the bar, and the other bartender, she was doing this thing called shoot fighting with John Will. And me trying to pick her up, told her to give me a bit of a punch into the guts, and she dropped me. So I went, geez, she's done pretty well. So I went along to have a bit of a look at it and started training with John at that time. So that was a mixture of shoot fighting and also Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. The Jiu-Jitsu really took a back seat to a degree for the first year or so. So we trained half the night doing our kicks and punches, and then into the Jiu-Jitsu after that. And then as the years went on, mainly I evolved more into the jiu-jitsu part of it and left the stand-up part behind. That's the bit which really interested me. So that's the only martial arts background I had, or the type of the form I had. I didn't have any judo or kickboxing or boxing or anything like that at all. And I trained, well, back in those days, John was pretty much the only person in Australia doing jiu-jitsu. So it was very much a closed shop. There were no other clubs. So Pete DeBean, who was with John, left and started up his own club around about a year or so before I fought overseas. But other than that, it was just the 20 guys who were in the club that we trained with.
Fair enough. How did you get involved with Pancrase? Prior to you, there was Larry Papadopoulos, Krista Weaver, and Alex Cook. They'd all been directly recruited by Suzuki and Funaki. Was that the case here, or were you contacted through your coach or manager?
So I'd heard of Pancrase briefly. Had never seen it before. I was actually approached by an American promoter called Bob Batwin. He was a dodgy sort of a bloke. I found out later on that he was an American in Japan who was recruiting and supplying hostesses and strippers from Australia and America into Japan. Mm-hmm. And what he also did was bring fighters in as well. So he actually came to the club and he knew that I'd won a couple of state titles and a couple of national titles in Jiu-Jitsu. And he came in and basically said, would you like to have a go at this Pancrase? And I went, oh, yeah, what's it all about? And he showed me a video, and I went, oh, yeah, okay, that seems pretty cool. Similar to the UFC, but they had the guards on, and there was no clenched fist punching at all. And so it just started from there. And then next thing I know, he actually called up and said, we've organised a fight for you. So there was not a lot of preparation. There wasn't a lot of knowledge with what was going in. And Bob wasn't very good at being able to get me any sort of details, because the internet was not around pretty much back then. Not a lot of details on what the fighters were or the fights in general. So, yeah, that's how I got into it.
So you didn't really know anything about the Australian guys who'd been there previously too? Nothing about Larry Papadopoulos and nothing about the sort of enigmatic and non-existent Greg Smith?
That's exactly right. So I'd heard of Larry. I'd heard that he was quite the grappler and the wrestler. Other than that, I didn't know too much at all. As I said, this is in its infancy. There was basically very few clubs who were doing this, and it's just you'd hear it over the grapevine, and it wasn't like you can jump on and click and do Google and then bring up these guys. It was like you had to go get a video and you had to order it and you had to bring it down from Sydney. You had to wait for it to come along and all this sort of thing. So we used to have to swap videos. It was almost like playing cards. You'd swap videos for of fights and those sorts of things. So, yeah.
Right. What did you think of the rule set in Pancrase? Were you aware of how it was sort of evolved pro wrestling, or did you think it was just esoteric and strange?
It was a little bit strange. I mean, the UFC was the classic thing which we all grasped onto, and that was, back in the day. We're talking, the first half a dozen, not even that, of the UFC. And then when they sent the rule book to me, if you want to call it, or the actual. I was a little bit surprised with it. With the clenched fist, you're not allowed to punch with a clenched fist. And when you're trying to slap someone, it's a great way to injure wrists. I mean, yes, you can get a good slap or whatever it might be, but it wasn't a natural way, to fight. I found that a little bit strange. I didn't like the fact that you had 3 cracks. So if you were in a bit of trouble, then you could reach the ropes. You grabbed it, and you're basically Barley. And I'm like, what the hell's going on there? So that's a different way to fight. And in my first fight, I was lucky enough to get into a situation where I thought, I was literally going to get this guy. Next thing you know, we've stopped him. He basically, stood us back up again. And it's a strange. You've got to fight to the rules that are there. But at the time, when you're grappling doing jiu-jitsu, if you get an arm lock or you get a kimura or a choke, what's done is done. They tap and then it's finished. None of this grab something and then you get back up again. So it was a little bit different. Didn't really train for it in that sense, as in the rule books and those sorts of things. I just kept on doing my own thing at training and that sort of stuff. So, yeah.
So you didn't have any chance to research your opponents or anything like that? You had no idea who Osami Shibuya was before you got in the ring with him? Nothing?
No, the only thing I heard was that his nickname was the Predator, and he was a bit of a ladies' man. And he was, I think at the time, ranked 3rd in the world. So I'm like, well, that's pretty good. He gets some bloke from Australia who's never had a pro fight. He's never fought in Pancrase and go up against someone like that. I was like, oh, well, let's see how this goes. So, yeah, interesting.
Fair enough. Did you get to spend any time around the dojo warming up before your fight? Did you see the Pancrase Dojo at all, or was it just straight into the match?
So we went in about 2-3 days beforehand, landed there, and we actually were in Yokohama at the old dojo, which was basically just a tin shed up on the side of a hill. The Japanese fighters were living on site there as well, and they just had basically curtains which pulled back and forth from their living area onto the mat. We didn't train with them. They didn't allow us to train with each other. It was very, very standoffish. You'd walk up and the guys would introduce themselves, and I had a manager. What was his name? I can't remember his name. Otoya, I think it was. And he introduced me to the guys, and they shook my hand, and that was it. There was no... And I was over there with Junior or Les Johnson at the time, so we trained with each other. We'd get about an hour or so worth of training, and we'd jump on the subway and head back to the hotel after that. So, yeah.
Fair enough. At the same time you were there, Paul Lazenby was wrapping up his run, so he fought Satoshi Hasegawa on the same card you were fighting Shibuya. Did you see him at all? He was a gigantic Canadian guy with a ponytail.
Oh, that's all right. No, he was a big wood chopper. We got to have a bit of a chat. He was a pleasant enough guy. The international fighters had a bit of a kinship with each other because we weren't fighting each other for one. And he was you could just see by the size of his hands and his forearms that, he'd snap you in half. And it's funny because there was an image which I had of him putting Hasegawa through the floor and trying to make him an ink spot on the mat. And he was pounding the hell out of him. And I was watching before I had my fight. And I went, holy crap. It really hit home how... this wasn't just mucking around and having a bit of a grapple or a bit of a roll. So yeah, but George was great. He was a good fella.
Excellent. All right. Did you have? So we're going to the night of the fight now. Did you have any sort of thoughts heading into the ring? Did you have any nerves or anxiety? I know when I'm walking to the cage, I just don't want to trip up the stairs. That's literally the only fucking thing I can think. The moment I'm in there, it's fine, but.
Yeah. Look, because I was walking into an unknown situation, my nerves were pretty good all the way up until the night of the fight and got into the into the change rooms. And as I said, my nerves escalated. As I said, when I saw George pounding this bloke into the floor, and there's all these people around. And I've fought in front of 50 people, 100 people, and they're all the other grapplers and partners. And then next thing you know, there's all these lights and cameras and audience and this sort of thing. I literally went, what the hell am I doing here? I've done no specific training. I don't really know what I'm doing. And I was trying to fake a hamstring, if you want to say at the time. I was like, how the hell can I get out of this? But got over that, luckily. And once they introduced you and walked yourself in, and once I got inside the ring, it was a bit of a calming effect because the Japanese audience are very, very respectful. And as you guys see in the fights, they're very, very quiet, and they'll applause when there's something to applaud. You don't get it like here in Australia where they go, smash his fucking head in, or whatever it'll be. They're a very polite society. So when I got into the ring and it was so dark, I actually thought to myself, is there actually anyone here? And then they'd clap and cheer and do whatever. So that sort of calmed me down once I got into the ring.
And so here we join a much younger David Moore in the ring, being given an explanation of the rules, probably paying a fair bit of attention. As you mentioned, he only received the fight pamphlet a couple of weeks before and didn't really know didn't really understand the rules of Pancrase. But there we go. Low kick from Osami Shibuya. David, faking some strikes, eats a body kick on the way in, manages to get his arms in the way of it, and pulls guard after that, which I'm not a gigantic fan of, but that's his prerogative. And I suppose in Pancrase it's less of a dangerous position, considering you don't have the ground and pound to worry about. Osami Shibuya doing the standard Pancrase thing, fuck passing guard. I'm going to pull up on a leg lock, but well done, David Moore. Sits up on that ankle lock attempt and comes out on top. So he's in side control here, hooking the head of Osami Shibuya. Reaches back, places his hand very deliberately next to the hip of Osami Shibuya to set up the mount entry. So that's really interesting. Nearly gets his foot caught up in half guard. So the way I describe Leon Dyke striking, with the way he strikes, is very deliberate. It's sort of as if he's deliberately exaggerating his technique in order to show to somebody exactly how to do it correctly. That's how looking at that hand placement by David Moore, that reminded me of that. So back standing here, Kosuke Kenji, the referee for this contest, he's jumped in pretty early with a break there. Wasn't exactly super static. Another couple of kicks from Osami Shibuya. I think he's a lot more comfortable striking than David. Going for a nice little ankle pick there, but he's left his arm behind. Gets double wrist lock rolled, probably Kimura rolled by David Moore, and into an armbar. Very nice. So we'll see what he does here. Trying to separate the grips. Oh, nice. Pushes away on the knee of Osami Shibuya to create a bit more space for his head so he can get some leverage and prevent himself from getting stacked on this armbar. Gets the arm straight, and Osami Shibuya grabs the ropes. So, first rope escape. Debutant fighter versus a guy who's been fighting for 2 years, and David Moore gets the rope escape out of Osami Shibuya. That's pretty good. Alright, backstanding. Bit of an interesting entry into the clinch there from David Moore, and he sort of accepts bottom position here from a body lock takedown from Osami Shibuya. Got the overhook. Trying to hip away from Shibuya. Not sure if he wants to stand up because he's had success in the guard before. Underhooks the leg. Shibuya going for the toe hold. David Moore's got his knee back. Osami Shibuya drags him away from the ropes, and David Moore decides to grab the ropes there. So he didn't want to fuck around in the leg lock position, which is fair, given that we've been pretty behind the leg lock game in the country of Australia until fairly recently. Alright, backstanding. High kick attempt from Osami Shibuya. Body kick again. Straight into a single leg. Nice single leg from Osami Shibuya. Setting up for another leg lock attack. No, he uses it to pass this time. David Moore trying to enter deep half here. Underhook from Osami Shibuya prevents that. Side control from Shibuya. Trying to slide over into mount. Gets his foot caught up by David. So into half guard. But Shibuya decides, fuck passing guard. Oh, somebody's doing something they shouldn't be. We had a little ambulance drive past my house there. Sorry. Toe hold from Shibuya. Nice toe hold. David stomping down on the foot. Nicely done to escape that one. Steering wheel toe hold from Shibuya. David stomping again. He's got his knee straight, so that's going to be quite difficult to finish. But now Osami Shibuya going for the knee bar. It's pretty close. Yeah, he's right on David's knee, so finishing the knee bar there would be difficult. David manages to come up on top, getting his arm involved. Nicely done, Shibuya, to invert and reverse, but David's managed to spin all the way around and come up on top, and the crowd appreciate that one. Well done, David Moore. Alright, top side control. Let's see what else he can do from here. Knee on belly. Underhook on that far side is going to spin into an armbar again. There we go. Straight into the armbar. Osami Shibuya. Osami Shibuya's managed to get his other arm sort of underneath over the top of the other leg of David Moore, so it's going to be quite difficult for David to finish that armbar. In fact, well done, Osami. Recovers his elbow, hooks the leg of David Moore, and comes up on top in half guard. Now he's trying for a double wrist lock of his own. David Moore using his shin to peel off the grips of Osami Shibuya. Shibuya slides into mount. David Moore catches up half guard again. Bit of an open half guard. Probably worried about the arm on the far side. Straight armbar from Osami Shibuya. To double wrist lock from Osami Shibuya. Oh, and David Moore's up on his side, so he can be finished here. Ah, nice. Just muscles out of it. Well done, David. He gets his arm straight and pops free of the grips. Osami Shibuya going to shin on neck ride. Double knee ride here. Sits back into leg lock position. That's no good at all. Oh, and he's got the upside down steering wheel toe hold. And that is the end of the fight there. So very well done, David Moore. Very good for his MMA debut against a guy with serious experience in Osami Shibuya. And let's hear David's thoughts on this fight. So, as you mentioned, early in the fight you caught a very nice armbar on Osami Shibuya, and then he caught the ropes and got the escape. How did that feel? Did you feel like, I've won this fight and so now what's going to happen? Or just, give us your thoughts.
Yeah, look, I did. They're actually really, really good beforehand. As my overseas manager would tell me a little bit about each of the fighters that I was fighting, which now I look back, it was a ploy to put me off my game. And he was saying to me, I know you do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and you guys do a lot of arm locks and arm bars. And he said to me that Shibuya said he's never had his arm caught. No one can ever get his arm. And I'm like, oh, okay, rightio. And that was obviously to try to put me off. So when we were grappling, I was surprised at how deep his elbow I was able to get. And I felt really secure with it. I was actually going to, when I was underneath, I was going to grab his leg, roll him over and put him flat on his back. Because I felt I had the position for it. And then I thought, that may loosen my control and he may be able to get up and stack me up and pull my arm out. Pull his arm out. So I continued and he just basically rolled me and grabbed for the rope. And looking back now, I should have gone, that was my normal instinct, is to get up, roll him over, get on top. But I thought, let's just keep the control of it. And I had completely forgot about the Bali thing where they can grab the moves. So I was surprised to get it and how quickly I did get it, or how easily I got it. And then after that I went, oh, okay, here we go. Let's see what happens. So the fight then continued. They stood us back up. So we started to get into a bit of a leg lock war, and really when we were doing jiu-jitsu, we didn't do a lot of leg locks at all. We were sort of showing them, but we didn't do ankle locks. We didn't do a lot of knee locks because of the damage that you can do to them. So it was only a month or so beforehand that John, my coach, was showing me different types of leg locks and how to counter them and to react to them. So we did that a couple of times, I think, during the fight.
So at that point in the Pancrase rules, heel hooks were officially banned. However, what he caught you in is essentially a heel hook. How did that make you feel?
Look, I was pretty pissed off because, again, the way that he did the heel hook, he'd be going from one angle and then he switched it over and then basically did it on the medial side of it rather than the lateral side, and did a bit of damage to my knee. And I questioned it afterwards, and they said, "Oh no, it wasn't a heel hook. It wasn't a heel hook." And I'm like, "Well, my interpretation, what I was being taught back home, is that was a heel hook." So that was questionable. But again, with fights later on, they did favour the Japanese in certain areas of the way they'd officiate and the way they would deal with things. So. It is what it is. Can't do too much about it now. I could have protested at the time. But again, I wasn't au fait really with the rules at the time to be out off the cuff to go, hey, hang on, that was a heel.
How disappointed were you by the loss, or did you just write it off to, well, that was an interesting experience?
It was, I was disappointed by the loss, the fact that I didn't follow my instincts with that first armbar. But I was really happy with the fact that I caught him in an armbar. Happy with the fact that I got him with an armbar, but he was able to grab hold of that rope before I was able to, basically extend his arm. Caught him again a second time, and then again with the grappling, with the heel hook thing. So I was happy with the fight. I was unhappy with the results in the end. And fighting against a bloke who was making his run as well at the time, I was like, geez, this is maybe I can compete at this level, not ever having it done before. And I know afterwards he actually came in and we had a bit of a chat, and he said, you're a very interesting fighter. And he said, you've got a very, very good armbar. And he said, but you won't get me next time. I'm like, okay, cool. So, never got to fight him again, which is a bit of a pity.
So, an enormous thank you to David Moore for sharing his thoughts on his first fight in Pancrase. I hope you all enjoyed that. I certainly did, and I shall see you all next time.